The champagne glass slipped from my trembling hands as Madison Sterling's voice cut through the elegant ballroom like a knife. "Excuse me, but I think the help should use the service entrance." The entire corporate gala fell silent around us, 200 pairs of eyes turning to witness my humiliation. The crystal chandeliers above seemed to dim as every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every laugh died in someone's throat, and the gentle clink of silverware against china plates ceased entirely. Little did she know that in exactly 47 minutes, her father would watch me accept the very award she had been bragging about winning all evening. My name is Sarah Chen, and I had been working as a financial analyst at Sterling Industries for 3 years. The company's annual gala was supposed to be my moment of triumph, the night I would finally receive recognition for turning around our failing Chicago division. I had spent countless nights poring over spreadsheets, analyzing market trends, and developing cost-saving strategies that had literally saved the company from bankruptcy. But as I stood there in my carefully chosen navy dress, watching Madison Sterling's perfectly manicured finger point toward the service door like I was some common servant, I realized that some battles require more strategy than others. Please subscribe to our channel to help us bring you more real stories like this one, and comment below to let us know where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue sharing these incredible true experiences. The Sterling Industries building towered over downtown Chicago like a glass and steel monument to corporate success, its 40-story structure casting long shadows across the bustling streets of the Loop District. Every morning for the past 3 years, I had walked through those gleaming, revolving doors with purpose, carrying my worn leather briefcase and the weight of proving myself in a company where connections mattered more than competence. The security guards knew me by name now, nodding respectfully as I badged in each morning at precisely 7:30. Always among the first employees to arrive. The October wind whipped off Lake Michigan that evening, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the promise of an early winter, matching the chill I felt whenever Madison Sterling graced our offices with her presence. The building itself was a testament to old Chicago money, with its marble lobby featuring intricate mosaics depicting the city's industrial heritage. Sterling Industries had occupied the top 15 floors since 1982, when Charles Sterling had moved the company headquarters from a modest office building in Oak Park to this prestigious downtown location. The executive floors were decorated with original artwork and furnished with pieces that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. Madison was everything I was not, and she made sure everyone knew it. 26 years old with platinum blonde hair that never seemed out of place, she had graduated from Northwestern with a business degree that her father's donations had undoubtedly helped secure. Her office was 3 times the size of mine, decorated with fresh flowers that were replaced twice weekly and abstract paintings that she claimed to have personally selected from local galleries. While I had worked 2 jobs through community college, serving coffee at dawn and stocking shelves until midnight to pay for textbooks, Madison treated the corporate world like her personal playground. She held the title of marketing coordinator, though most employees knew she spent more time planning lunch dates at Trendy River North restaurants than developing marketing campaigns. I had learned to navigate around Madison's moods and schedules, timing my visits to certain departments when I knew she would be out of the office. Her presence had a way of shifting the entire dynamic of a room, as colleagues would suddenly become more formal and deferential, laughing a little too loudly at her jokes and agreeing a little too quickly with her suggestions. It wasn't malicious behavior from my coworkers, just the practical recognition that maintaining good relations with the boss's daughter was a career preservation strategy. The gala was being held at the Palmer House Hilton, one of Chicago's most prestigious venues with a history dating back to 1871. Crystal chandeliers that had witnessed over a century of celebrations cast warm light over the cream and gold ballroom, where Chicago's business elite mingled in their finest attire. The hotel's grand architecture spoke of old-world elegance, with ornate ceiling moldings and marble columns that made even the most confident executives seem small by comparison. I had spent 3 months of grocery money on my dress, a simple but elegant navy number that I hoped would help me blend in with the crowd of women wearing designer gowns that cost more than my car. The shopping experience itself had been intimidating, trying on dresses at Nordstrom while acutely aware that the saleswoman was calculating my ability to afford anything in the store. As I entered the ballroom, the sounds of classical music performed by a string quartet and polite laughter filled the air, along with the subtle pressure of knowing that tonight would determine my future at the company. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with the aroma of gourmet hors d'oeuvres being passed by servers in crisp white uniforms. Everywhere I looked, I saw the kind of effortless sophistication that money could buy, From the perfectly arranged centerpieces featuring exotic orchids to the premium champagne being poured from bottles that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Charles Sterling, the company's CEO and Madison's father, stood near the front of the room greeting guests. At 62, he commanded respect with his silver hair and authoritative presence, though I had always wondered how much of his daughter's behavior he actually witnessed. The evening's program included dinner, networking, and the presentation of the annual Excellence in Innovation Award, an honor that came with a $10,000 bonus and guaranteed promotion to senior management. For months, I had been quietly confident about winning that award, perhaps naively so. My financial analysis had identified cost-saving opportunities that saved Sterling Industries over $2 million in the past year, money that had literally kept the company solvent during a particularly challenging economic period. I had restructured our supply chain relationships with 17 different vendors, negotiated better contracts that reduced overhead by 32%, and created automated reporting systems that increased efficiency across 3 departments while eliminating the need for 2 temporary positions. The numbers spoke for themselves, displayed in neat charts and graphs that I had presented to the executive committee on multiple occasions. Each presentation met with nods of approval and promises of recognition. But beyond the statistics, I knew the human cost of my work. Every dollar I had saved represented job security for my colleagues, bonuses that could be distributed to hardworking employees, and stability for families who depended on Sterling Industries for their livelihood. I had spent countless evenings in the office, long after the cleaning crew had finished their rounds, analyzing data and developing strategies, while the city lights twinkled beyond my window. Several department heads had privately congratulated me on what they assumed would be my inevitable victory, with the head of operations even joking that I should prepare an acceptance speech. But as I made my way through the crowd that evening, weaving between clusters of executives discussing everything from Chicago Bulls prospects to the latest Federal Reserve announcements, I began to notice subtle signs that my assumption might have been naive. Madison was holding court near the dessert table, which featured an elaborate display of French pastries and chocolate sculptures that looked more like art installations than food. Her laugh rang out as she described her innovative social media campaign to a group of board members who hung on her every word with the kind of attention that suggested they were more interested in maintaining good relations with Charles Sterling than evaluating his daughter's actual contributions. She wore a stunning red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, custom-tailored to fit her perfectly and accessorized with jewelry that caught the ballroom lights like tiny stars. Her confidence was the kind that comes from never having been told no, never having been rejected, never having been forced to prove yourself in a room full of people who assumed you didn't belong. She moved through the room with the fluid grace of someone who had attended similar events since childhood, air-kissing acquaintances and seamlessly transitioning from conversation to conversation with the practiced ease of a professional socialite. "Sarah, there you are," called Jennifer Martinez, my closest colleague and one of the few people who knew how hard I had worked for this recognition. Jennifer approached with 2 glasses of champagne, her expression mixing excitement with concern. "Are you ready for your big moment?" "As ready as I can be," I replied, accepting the champagne gratefully. The bubbles tickled my throat, but they did little to calm the growing nervousness in my stomach. "Have you heard anything about the award announcement?" Jennifer's expression grew more serious. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I overheard Madison telling the board members about some presentation she apparently gave to the New York office. She seems pretty confident about tonight." My heart sank, though I tried to maintain my composure. "What kind of presentation?" "Something about brand repositioning and market expansion," Jennifer said carefully. "Look, Sarah, we all know your work this year has been exceptional, but you know how these things sometimes go in companies like this." I knew exactly what she meant. Sterling Industries, like many family-owned corporations, had an unofficial hierarchy that didn't always align with merit. Madison's last name carried weight that my accomplishments, however significant, might not be able to match. The realization settled over me like the October chill seeping through the ballroom's tall windows. As the evening progressed and guests moved from the cocktail hour to their assigned tables for dinner, I watched Madison work the room with practiced ease. She had grown up in this world of corporate politics and social maneuvering, attending charity galas and business functions since she was old enough to sit still through a 5-course meal. While I was still learning the unwritten rules about which topics were appropriate for small talk and how long to linger in each conversation before politely moving on, Madison navigated these interactions with the unconscious competence of someone for whom such events were as natural as breathing. She kissed cheeks with board members' wives, women who wore diamonds that could have paid off my student loans and carried handbags that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. She complimented executives on their golf games at exclusive country clubs where membership required not just wealth but the right connections and family background. She seamlessly inserted herself into every important conversation, somehow always knowing exactly when to laugh, when to nod thoughtfully, and when to offer insights that demonstrated her familiarity with the social hierarchies that govern Chicago's business community. Her confidence was magnetic in the way that privilege often is, drawing people into her orbit not necessarily because of her actual accomplishments but because of what her approval or disapproval might mean for their own professional prospects. I began to understand why she might genuinely believe the award was already hers, not because she had done the work to earn it, but because she had never experienced a world where being Charles Sterling's daughter wasn't enough to guarantee success. The dinner portion of the evening was an elaborate affair with multiple courses that I barely tasted, each dish artfully presented by servers who moved through the room with choreographed precision. The menu featured delicacies that I had only read about in magazines. Seared foie gras with cherry gastrique, lobster bisque infused with cognac, aged beef tenderloin with truffle butter that probably cost more per ounce than gold. I found myself seated at a table with mid-level managers and their spouses, people who were successful but not quite important enough to command seats at the head table where the real power brokers gathered. The conversation at my table was pleasant enough, covering safe topics like recent vacations and the unusually warm October weather, but I could feel the underlying tension that comes with knowing that everyone was calculating their position in the company hierarchy. The marketing manager to my left kept glancing toward the head table where his boss sat, while the operations director across from me checked his phone periodically, clearly anxious about some ongoing crisis that couldn't wait until Monday morning. Meanwhile, Madison commanded attention at the head table alongside her father and the company's senior executives, her animated gestures and frequent laughter visible even from across the room. She had been placed strategically next to the chief marketing officer, a positioning that seemed to signal something about her expected role in the evening's proceedings. Every few minutes, her crystalline laughter would carry across the ballroom like the sound of expensive champagne glasses clinking together, a musical note that seemed to emphasize the distance between our respective positions in the company hierarchy. During the main course, Madison rose from her seat and began making rounds to other tables. She moved with the grace of someone accustomed to being the center of attention, stopping to chat with groups of employees who seemed genuinely delighted by her presence. As she approached our table, I felt my colleagues straighten slightly, the subtle shift in posture that occurs when someone important draws near. "Hello, everyone," Madison said warmly, her smile encompassing the entire table. "I hope you're all enjoying the evening. Daddy really outdid himself with the venue choice, don't you think?" The others at my table murmured agreement, and Madison's gaze eventually settled on me. "Sarah, right? You work in finance." Her tone was polite but distant, the way someone might address a service provider whose name they had made an effort to remember. "That's right," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I'm looking forward to the award presentation later." Something flickered in Madison's eyes, a momentary sharpening that most people probably would have missed. "Oh yes, the Innovation Award. That should be quite interesting." She paused, her smile never wavering. "I do hope the best person wins." The comment itself was innocuous, but the way she delivered it carried an unmistakable message. She knew we were competitors, and she wanted me to know that she considered the outcome already decided. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with the table, she moved on, leaving behind a subtle tension that everyone seemed to feel but no one acknowledged. As the dinner plates were cleared and the evening moved toward the award presentation, I excused myself to use the restroom. The hallway outside the ballroom was quieter, decorated with historical photographs of Chicago and elegant floral arrangements. I needed a moment to collect myself and prepare for whatever was about to happen. In the restroom mirror, I checked my appearance one final time. My dress still looked appropriate, my makeup was intact, and my hair remained in the simple updo I had practiced several times at home. I looked professional and competent, even if I didn't feel entirely confident about the evening's outcome. As I prepared to return to the ballroom, I reminded myself that regardless of who won the award, I had done excellent work that had genuinely benefited the company. The restroom door opened behind me, and Madison's reflection appeared in the mirror. She moved to the sink beside mine, touching up her already perfect lipstick with the kind of casual precision that spoke to years of practice. For a moment, we stood side by side in the mirror's reflection, two women from vastly different worlds who had somehow ended up competing for the same recognition. "You know," Madison said conversationally, not looking directly at me, Daddy always says that success in business is about more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. I met her eyes in the mirror. That's true. Innovation requires both analytical thinking and creative vision. She smiled, but there was steel beneath it. Exactly. And sometimes the most innovative thing is knowing how to present ideas in a way that resonates with decision makers. It's about understanding the bigger picture, not just getting lost in the details. The implication was clear. She considered my work to be merely technical detail, while her contributions represented true strategic thinking. I wanted to respond, to defend the value of the analytical work that had saved the company millions, but something in her demeanor warned me that this wasn't the right battle to fight in a hotel restroom. Well, I said finally, I suppose we'll see what the judges valued most. Madison's smile widened, becoming almost predatory. Yes, I suppose we will. We returned to the ballroom together, walking in a silence that felt heavy with unspoken competition. The lights had been dimmed, and a small stage had been set up at the front of the room where Charles Sterling now stood behind a microphone. The buzz of conversation gradually died down as guests returned to their seats and focused their attention on the front of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Sterling's voice carried easily across the ballroom. Thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate another successful year at Sterling Industries. This company has been part of the Chicago business community for over 4 decades, and our continued growth depends on the innovation and dedication of our exceptional team. I felt my heart rate increase as he continued his opening remarks. Somewhere in the next few minutes, my professional future would be determined. I glanced around the room and noticed that Madison had positioned herself at a table near the front, where her reaction to the announcement would be clearly visible to everyone, including her father. The Excellence in Innovation Award recognizes an employee who has demonstrated exceptional creativity, strategic thinking, and measurable impact on our company's success, Charles continued. This year's nominees have all contributed significantly to our organization, but one individual's work has been particularly transformative. The suspense was becoming unbearable. I found myself gripping the edge of the table, my knuckles white against the cream-colored tablecloth. Jennifer, seated beside me, reached over and gave my arm a supportive squeeze. Before I announce this year's winner, Charles said, I want to share some of the specific achievements that made this decision clear to our judging committee. He began describing the winning project in detail. A comprehensive financial analysis that had identified inefficiencies across multiple departments, leading to cost savings of over $2 million. He mentioned the restructured supply chain relationships, the improved vendor negotiations, and the reporting systems that had increased operational efficiency. Every word he spoke was describing my work, my project, my countless hours of research and analysis. I felt a surge of vindication and excitement, but I forced myself to remain calm until he actually announced my name. Madison's confident expression had begun to waver as the description continued, and I could see her father's words slowly registering in her mind. The recipient of this year's Excellence in Innovation Award has demonstrated that sometimes the most valuable innovations come from careful analysis and practical solutions rather than flashy presentations, Charles Sterling announced. Please join me in congratulating Sarah Chen. The applause that followed seemed to echo from another dimension. I felt myself standing, felt Jennifer's enthusiastic hug, felt the eyes of 200 people focused on me as I made my way to the front of the room. But my primary awareness was of Madison Sterling's face, watching her confident smile crumble into shock and disbelief. As I approached the stage, Charles Sterling extended his hand with what appeared to be genuine warmth. Congratulations, Sarah. Your work this year has been truly exceptional. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, I managed to say into the microphone. I'm honored to receive this recognition. From the stage, I could see the entire ballroom spread out before me. Most faces showed polite applause and genuine smiles, but my attention was drawn to Madison, who sat frozen in her chair near the front. Her perfectly composed facade had completely disappeared, replaced by an expression of raw shock that suggested she had never seriously considered the possibility of losing. The award itself was a beautiful crystal sculpture that caught the light as Charles handed it to me, along with an envelope containing the $10,000 bonus check. Would you like to say a few words? He asked. I took the microphone with hands that were steadier than I had expected. Thank you all for this incredible honor. This award represents not just my individual effort, but the collaborative spirit that makes Sterling Industries successful. I want to thank my colleagues in the finance department, the operations team that implemented these changes, and everyone who supported this project. The applause that followed was warm and sustained, and I could see genuine appreciation on many faces throughout the room. But as I handed the microphone back to Charles Sterling and prepared to return to my seat, I noticed Madison abruptly standing and walking quickly toward the exit. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and networking conversations. Colleagues who had barely acknowledged me in previous years suddenly wanted to discuss my project in detail. Senior executives made a point of introducing themselves and expressing interest in my future plans with the company. The promotion that came with the award would move me into senior management, a goal that had seemed impossibly distant just hours earlier. But despite the celebration surrounding me, I remained acutely aware of Madison's absence from the ballroom. She had disappeared immediately after the award announcement and hadn't returned. Part of me felt sympathy for her disappointment, while another part wondered if this experience might teach her something about the difference between entitlement and achievement. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Charles Sterling approached me one final time. "Sarah, I wanted to speak with you privately for a moment." We moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the remaining clusters of conversation. Up close, I could see that he looked tired, though whether from the long evening or something else, I couldn't tell. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I'm aware that there have been some assumptions made about tonight's award, and I realize that may have created an uncomfortable situation for you. I wasn't sure how to respond. Mr. Sterling, I'm just grateful for the recognition of my work." He nodded slowly. "Your work has been exceptional, Sarah. The judging was unanimous, and it wasn't even close. But I know my daughter had been expecting this award, and I suspect her disappointment may have been visible tonight." The understatement was almost amusing. "I understand that these situations can be challenging," I said diplomatically. "Madison is still learning about business and about life," Charles continued. "She's been given many advantages, perhaps too many, and she sometimes assumes that success will simply be handed to her. Tonight was an important lesson, though I suspect she won't appreciate it immediately." I chose my words carefully. "Everyone learns and grows at their own pace." Charles Sterling smiled at my diplomatic response. "You handled tonight with remarkable grace, Sarah. That kind of professionalism will serve you well in senior management." As I finally left the Palmer House that evening, walking out into the crisp October air with my crystal award tucked carefully in my purse, I reflected on how dramatically the night had exceeded my expectations. Not only had I won the recognition I had worked so hard for, but I had also gained insight into the complex dynamics that shape success in corporate environments. The following Monday morning, I arrived at Sterling Industries with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. News of my award had spread throughout the company over the weekend, and I received numerous congratulations from colleagues as I made my way to my desk. But I also wondered how Madison would react when she returned to the office. I didn't have to wait long to find out. Madison arrived mid-morning, her usual confident stride replaced by something more subdued. She moved through the office quietly, avoiding eye contact with most people and heading directly to her father's corner office. Through the glass walls, I could see them engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation, though the distance and soundproofing made it impossible to overhear. About an hour later, Madison emerged from her father's office and walked directly to my desk. The entire finance department seemed to hold its breath as she approached, everyone pretending to focus on their work while obviously listening for whatever was about to happen. "Sarah," Madison said, her voice carefully controlled, "I wanted to congratulate you on your award." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my tone neutral and professional. She stood there for a moment longer, as if searching for additional words. Finally, she said, "I hope you'll be happy in your new position." "I appreciate that," I said, and I meant it. Whatever else had happened between us, her attempt at graciousness was more than I had expected. Madison nodded once and walked away, leaving behind a collective exhale from my colleagues who had been tensely observing our interaction. Jennifer caught my eye from across the room and gave me a subtle thumbs up, her expression mixing relief with admiration. The promotion that came with the award moved me into a corner office on the executive floor, a space that came with significantly more responsibility and visibility within the company. My new role involved overseeing financial analysis for all divisions, managing a team of 6 analysts, and reporting directly to the chief financial officer. The $10,000 bonus allowed me to pay off my remaining student loans and put a down payment on a small condo in Lincoln Park. Over the following months, Madison and I developed a professional relationship that, while never warm, was marked by mutual respect. She seemed to approach her work with more focus and dedication, perhaps motivated by the reality check she had received at the gala. Her social media campaigns actually began showing measurable results, and she started attending more operational meetings instead of just networking events. One afternoon in December, about 2 months after the gala, Madison knocked on my office door. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "Of course," I said, gesturing for her to sit in one of the chairs across from my desk. She settled into the chair with less than her usual poise, her hands fidgeting slightly with her designer handbag. "I wanted to talk to you about something." I waited, giving her space to find her words. "I realize I may have been dismissive of your work in the past," she said finally. "I thought business success was more about relationships and presentation than technical skills. The awards ceremony made me understand that I was wrong." Her admission surprised me with its directness. "Thank you for saying that. I appreciate your honesty. I've been watching how you approach projects," she continued, "and I'm wondering if you might be willing to collaborate on something. Our marketing campaigns could probably benefit from more rigorous analytical support, and your financial background might help us measure ROI more effectively." The request was unexpected, but I could see the logic in it. I'd be open to exploring that. "What did you have in mind?" We spent the next hour discussing potential ways our departments could work together more effectively. Madison's ideas were actually quite good when stripped of their previous pretentiousness, and I found myself genuinely interested in several of her proposals. By the end of our conversation, we had outlined a pilot project that would combine analytical rigor with creative marketing strategies. The collaboration proved successful beyond either of our expectations. Madison's understanding of brand positioning and customer psychology complemented my analytical approach, resulting in campaigns that were both creative and measurably effective. Our quarterly reports showed significant improvements in customer acquisition costs and lifetime value metrics, results that caught the attention of senior leadership. 6 months after the gala, Charles Sterling called both Madison and me into his office for what he described as a strategic planning session. The meeting included the CMO and CFO, indicating that whatever was being discussed had significant implications for the company. "I've been impressed with the collaboration between marketing and finance," Charles began. "The results speak for themselves, but more importantly, I've seen both of you grow as professionals and as colleagues." Madison and I exchanged glances, both of us uncertain where this conversation was heading. "We're expanding into new markets next year," Charles continued, "and I want to create a cross-functional team to lead that expansion. Sarah, your analytical skills will be crucial for market assessment and financial modeling. Madison, your marketing insight will be essential for brand positioning and customer acquisition strategy." The opportunity he outlined was substantial, leading the company's expansion into the West Coast market, with full P&L responsibility and significant autonomy. It represented a major career advancement for both of us, but it would also require us to work closely together for an extended period. After the meeting, Madison and I walked back to our offices together in contemplative silence. Finally, she spoke. "Are you interested in the expansion project?" "Very much so," I replied. "What about you?" She nodded thoughtfully. "It's exactly the kind of challenge I've been looking for. And honestly, I think we work well together now." "I agree. We balance each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty effectively." Madison stopped walking and turned to face me directly. "Sarah, I need to apologize for something specific. At the gala, before the award ceremony, I made some comments that were condescending and unprofessional. I was threatened by your competence, and I handled it poorly." Her apology was more direct than I had expected, and I could see genuine regret in her expression. "Thank you for saying that. I accept your apology. I want you to know that working with you has taught me a lot about what real leadership looks like," she continued. "You lead by example and earn respect through your work, rather than expecting it because of your position or background." The irony wasn't lost on either of us that the evening she had tried to diminish my presence at the gala had ultimately led to one of the most important professional relationships of both our careers. Sometimes the moments that seem like defeats actually redirect us toward better outcomes than we originally imagined. The West Coast expansion project launched 6 months later with Madison and me as co-directors, supported by a team of 12 professionals from various departments. Our complementary skills proved even more valuable in the complex environment of market expansion, where analytical rigor and creative strategy needed to work in perfect harmony. Looking back on that October evening at the Palmer House, I realized that Madison's attempt to put me in my place had actually revealed something important about both of us. She had been operating from a place of insecurity masked by entitlement, while I had been focused solely on competence without considering the importance of relationships and communication. The collision between our different approaches ultimately made both of us more effective leaders. The Crystal Award still sits on my office bookshelf, but it represents more than just recognition for a single project. It reminds me that sometimes our greatest professional growth comes from moments of conflict that force us to examine our assumptions and evolve our approaches. Madison's challenge had pushed me to defend not just my work but my right to recognition, while my success had forced her to confront the difference between inherited privilege and earned achievement. 2 years later, when Madison was promoted to Vice President of Marketing and I became Senior Director of Strategic Analytics, we celebrated together at the same Palmer House ballroom where our professional relationship had begun. The conversation was easy now, marked by mutual respect and genuine friendship that had developed through shared challenges and collaborative success. As we raised our glasses that evening, Madison looked around the familiar ballroom and smiled. "You know, I'm glad things worked out the way they did that night. Even though you didn't win the award?" I asked with a grin. "Especially because I didn't win the award," she replied. "It taught me that the best victories are the ones you actually earn." The champagne tasted better that second time around, seasoned with the knowledge that real success comes not from putting others down, but from lifting each other up. And as Chicago's lights twinkled beyond the ballroom windows, I reflected on how one evening's humiliation had ultimately transformed into years of professional growth and unexpected friendship. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to diminish you is simply to let your work speak louder than their words. And sometimes, if you're very fortunate, that response creates space for everyone to grow into better versions of themselves.